So welcome to another episode of our Zynga Poker Strategy Guide. What we're doing here is we're taking a look at how the different games on Zynga play and how we can apply these to our real money games. You'll notice that I'm sitting at a $2 million buy-in table right now. It's one of the middle stakes games here on Zynga. There are games that go up to 50 and 100 million buy-ins, but this is a pretty sizable game. You got to play a long time to get to where you've got enough buy-ins for this. I won several tournaments getting here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the play quality of the players here. Maybe find some spots we can talk about a little bit more in detail. So here we flopped top pair with a weak kicker, and it's a drawy board. And what this is called is traditionally reverse implied odds. Now, a lot of players would bet here, but I'm going to try to take a couple of minutes and explain to you why that's a mistake. So you know what implied odds are. They're the money you'll get when you hit your hand from other players. So if we had a flush draw here, we would have implied odds. Reverse implied odds are the opposite. It's the implied odds other people get against you. There are a lot of hands out there with implied odds right now against us. In fact, I would go so far as to say that we are probably less than 10% to win this hand right now, just because there are 7s, 9s, 4s, overcards of every shape and size with this many players in, flush draws, and so on and so forth. And any one of those hands will hit, and we'll feel compelled to keep playing because we've got top pair. So this is a clear reverse implied odds situation. Typically you want to be able to bet and bet and bet. And see, this is a perfect example of Lance reverse implied odds. We've just hit a set, right? So now we're confident with our hand. Then the flush card comes on the river, and you don't know where you stand anymore. And you actually have what might be considered a really good hand if it was a different hand, if we had a set on a different board. And suffice to say that a pair of threes won it, which is not what I expected, but welcome to Zynga Poker. The secret is we didn't get involved there for any more than our initial investment, which was a blind. Alright, so let's see what we're doing. We got 9-6. Starting to feel out this table. Looks pretty loose, looks pretty limpy. Curious to see how they respond to raises. I'd like to start putting in some raises with monster hands. Looks like we're just going to see a flop here again. We're drawn to a 7, and we're not drawn to the nuts with that 7. Note that we are 200 big blinds deep against most of these players, and what that does for us is it gives us a huge advantage, because you know these players are not good deep stack players. They're not poker champions, but I don't think they realize it's 200 big blinds deep. They don't realize they're going to be asked to overbet to see their top pair down. So we're going to try to use that. We're going to try to play some very deep pots, try to get our stack in. Now to do that, what kind of hands do we need to play? Well, we need to play our suited connectors, we need to play our pocket pairs, things that make sets, broadways, things that make the nuts. And because we are so deep, we can afford to make a raise with some of these hands when we might not have made a raise before. So like under the gun with Queen Jack offsuit might not be a raising hand in a lot of situations. But when you're this deep, if you think you can get your opponents to put money in the pot, then you can raise with a lot of hands. So we've got ace jack off in the small blind. Ace jack's a great hand. It does make the nuts with queen king 10. Also makes top two pair, which can be a very solid hand. Now, at Risk Oriented, we have the Start Winning seminar, and what the seminar discusses is how many bets you want to put in with certain hands. And I'm not going to give away the secrets because the Start Winning seminar covers all that. But you want to raise to an amount that will allow you to put in as many bets as you want to get your stack in. So somewhere about 70,000 will actually get me pretty close. And we'll see what happens. I'm curious to how these players respond to a large raise. It is being called around the table. So now we do have a almost $400,000 pot in front of us. And we did miss the flop. But with this many players, we cannot afford to let this pot go away. So we're going to bet something like that. What we're representing here is aces. And Sebastian's very short, he'll probably call. Message short, he'll probably call. But we expect to get these two players to fold because they can't afford to go up against aces here. So we do take down the pot with an ace-jack. It's an ace-high, but it's good enough. And we are 500,000 chips richer because of it. That last hand's a spot where it's very easy to get suckered into timid play. You might really want to check that flop because there are so many people in, but you really have to maintain the image, especially with a flop that dry and that low. You've got to believe that most players haven't hit it. And even players who did hit it, maybe a player with a middle pair, like sevens, or if you get the 5, maybe he folds, maybe he puts you on aces. And heck, this is Zynga. Maybe pocket 9s folds because he puts you on aces. No help to our hand. So I'm going to play a couple more hands, then I'm going to cut this video off because I think we've got some very good hands to talk about, and I'll have it up on the YouTubes shortly. Now, people ask me all the time, can I play Zynga enough to get good at poker so that I can maybe make money at poker one day? And the answer is yes, with a caveat. There's going to be a lot of really bad players at Zynga poker, and it's not going to be hard to win money if you're reasonably solid. So if you don't make really bad plays, you should win lots of money. So the way I would know that I was good enough to begin my transition into actual poker rather than Zynga is at some point I need to be winning at least 80% of the games I play. I need to be taking home big chip dollars from Zynga, because what that tells me is that I've got the discipline to play a strategy that works for an extended period of time, which is what you have to do at live poker or online poker. So if you can consistently win and not swing up and down like crazy, you know, win 100,000, lose 100,000, or whatever denomination. If you can consistently play a strategy that wins for you, then I think you've got an opportunity to transition into real poker. What you'll have to do is, I think, maybe start studying again. Maybe check out riskoriented.com, buy the Start Winning package there, and really learn the game from the bottom up, because it does play so much different from Zynga. I mean, simple the fact of the matter is, on Zynga you can simply sit back and wait for strong hands, and you'll make a lot of money, because players will just play at you and they'll play into your big hands. And while that's true at some stakes online, the players are tighter. The money's real, so they don't just give it to you. And you can alleviate that by playing very high stakes at Zynga, because at that point the money is real. It does have some pride attached to it, so players do take it a little more seriously. So we've got 6-5 in the small blind. 6-5 does make a straight, which can make the nuts. So we are going to play this, and we're going to try to make the nuts with it. Looks like we've lost since we played our last hand. Several of the high stakes players, some of the big stack players, had a couple with 4 million. Now we've just got one, so actually only one person covers me. So I was considering, if we had a bunch of big stacks, 200 big blinds deep, raising this hand, trying to make the nuts with it. But I believe, since it's been limped around so much, I will just call. It's been raised to 110,000. He's got 15 times the size of his raise. It was called in one spot. If it gets called in enough spots by enough deep stack players, this might be a call. Typically when you're playing sets and suited connectors and things like that, well, it did get called by the other big stack, so I am going to call. You need about 20 times the raise in implied odds to make the call. We've got 15 times from the raiser, and we've got another 40 times from this Teresa. So I did opt to make that call, because if we had hit the 5-6 on an ace 5-6, we would have taken stacks. We would have taken entirety, and we did. We sucked out. So we are going to play for the big chips. So we're going to bet pot. On the river, if we still have the nuts, we are going to go all in. So that's how you take down another big pot. We talked through some stacked pot ratio there. We talked through some implied odds before the flop, and it worked out for us this time. Here we are back at the Nosebleed Stakes of Zynga Poker. We're going to be taking you through some hands, showing you how we'd play them. So here we've got ace queen under the gun. It's going to be a raise. What we want to do with this is we want to isolate ourselves with just one or two other opponents if possible, or if more than that wants to come in, we want to make them pay to play. We do get raised all in for just 800,000, and we are going to call that. And we do flop the trips and take it down. And just like that, another hand won. We do have the pocket sixes. Now, interesting thing about pocket sixes is you typically want to raise with them, because you want to build that pot up so that you can win a big pot. And so we are going to raise. We're going to hope to get it in with Sean here if we do flop a 6. We don't, but it does heads up. You're always going to bet as a c-bet heads up. Something about like that. And we have to see him fold here. If he does call, we have to turn to 6, or we're going to give up. If he does fold, c-bet takes down a pot. Easy as that. Alright, Jack 8 is going to be a fold into the gun. Typically I'd want to see ace 10 or better to raise there. You can't be playing every hand. The important thing to note that a lot of players don't know is it's typically better if you're opening to open with a raise rather than a call, because a raise starts building the pot If you've got a good enough hand to call, you've probably got a good enough hand to raise. The only times when that's not appropriate is when you do have several limps in front of you and you've got a hand that's just strong enough to limp, something like maybe 6-8 suited from the button. You might want to just limp that instead of raising it. Generally, if you were to have a nice pocket pair, you'd want to raise it and build a pot for yourself. So one of the first things we're going to do is try to determine where the fish is at the table. And you do that by watching the hands. Looks like Sean does know how to fold, so I doubt he's going to be a target. We're looking primarily at deep stack players, so anybody with over 2 million is probably a reasonable target. That's somebody with 50 big blinds. Anybody over 4 million with over 100 big blinds is definitely a target. So Mole does call, as does Mode. We're in the big blind with ace-9 suited. This is the kind of hand that you want to build a pot with and hope you flop something. So I'm going to put in a sizable raise since there is a deep stack in. Make it about 200 to go. And we do see a fold there. And great, we do get a call. And a re-raise. That's actually very scary to see a call re-raise. Makes you wonder what exactly he's got up under there. I doubt it's a supremely strong hand. We are going to play a little bit tighter with it now that he has raised this. And he does check. Makes no sense at all. I'm thinking he's got a suited connector of some kind. And we'll see here. So he does raise. We are going to fold. And we're going to let our two players on the table get it all in. That way we're going to see what Sean call re-raises with. And he did do it with Queen 10. He did flop a monster, but that was, like I said, suited connector. The hand that he decided to play was a suited connector. Typically when a player makes a strange min re-raise like that, it often is a suited connector. They believe that they are building the pot a little bit more, when in actuality what they want to do is see a cheap flop. So it did work out for him that time, and that's great because he's got a deeper stack, but definitely not the right play there. It would never be the right play to min raise with a suited connector. So we do flop the bottom pair. I doubt it's going to hold up to much action. I believe that is going to be enough to make us go away. So Use is betting just a little bit at a time. He's trying to get his stack in. I would imagine he has the 10. He does take it down on the river with the bet. We have 7-5 off on the button. There is dead money in the pot, and there are two big stacks playing with us. We are going to raise this simply for our positional advantage. I know we don't have much of a card advantage here. We're hoping to flop a hand that's very disguised and do something great with it. And we do get limp re-raise. It's going to be an easy fold because he raised so much. But I would be interested in seeing what he is playing like that with. He does have 2 9s. Interesting choice. I believe Sean's going to be one of our fish. I know I said earlier he looked like he knew how to fold, but if he is going to make those kinds of plays, then our strong hands like ace-king, aces, and kings and queens are going to go way up in value. And we are going to try to single him out going forward when we do get a strong hand. And I'll see if I can't show you how we're going to do that. So we do have Jack 9 in good position. We are going to raise this. Again, we're trying to get these big stacks to come along on the flop. And then we're trying to flop the nuts. We do flop second pair. I believe we're going to have to bet this, something like that. And I do hope use re-raises all in, because I'd like to see Sean's, see if Sean calls or raises. If he calls, then we're going to be a lot more hesitant to play. Alright, so we do turn a good card. There's no reason to stop betting because of that card. So we're going to go on and fire another half pot out. And finally at this river we're just going to check it down. He could have a queen, he could have hit the 10. But he did just have the 5. And we do take down another sizable pot. So Sean does get it in again with a very, very weak hand. So like we said earlier, I read that he's getting it in very weak hands before the flop, which makes our strong hands go up in value. That read is confirmed. So in a real poker game, we would absolutely love this seat just to the right of Sean. We would never leave this seat. We would play until we were out of money here, because there's no way that Sean is a winning player playing the kinds of hands he's playing for as much money as he is. And we took a look at his stats. He's got about 30 million in chips. He has played a lot of hands. He's probably been playing for several years, but he hasn't learned very much, or what he has learned has been the wrong thing. Now, poker's interesting like that. It's actually engineered to make you learn poorly. And why is that? Well, human beings we've evolved to have a good handle on learning. So if things work out for you, you learn to do them more often. If things don't work out for you, you learn not to do them so often. That's how we've survived all these hundreds of thousands of years. But on poker, you can make the right decision and have it not work out for you. And that can happen over and over and over. So what it actually does is it tricks our brain into teaching us things that we should learn. It's one of the reasons that coaching is very, very important. It's one of the reasons that studying the game is really important, because you have to make sure you're learning the right stuff. The learning has to come first. It has to be a priori knowledge. It has to not be based on what you've seen in the game, but based on what you've derived from the math. So, without further ado, I'll introduce myself. I am Sam Smith from RiskOriented.com. I was a professional poker player for 5 years. At Risk Oriented, we do coaching. We have a seminar product that we offer for $37, where you can come and learn everything that I know about poker. 15 lessons, great book. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going and showing some differences between real poker, real money poker, and Zynga poker. And one of the main differences is that people play a lot faster and looser. And I think everybody knows that Zynga poker, play money poker, people like to get it in a lot more. The thing is, you have players who do the same thing, who play the same strategies in real money poker. Perhaps because they learned it in play money poker. Right? So everything that these players are learning right now is wrong. It's teaching them bad lessons. If they ever do go on an upswing, decide they're good enough to put some money in, they do join a poker site, what you've got are a bunch of very, very trained people who are trained at doing things wrong. They've got bad habits. So that's why I recommend that anybody who does play Zynga poker puts a lot of work into learning the game rather than just playing. So I'm going to try to stay in this game. I'm not sure how long this video will run on, but I'd like to keep the video running up until the time when we stack Sean with a monster hand. So what I'll do is, if there's a long wait here between the time when I say this and the time when I stack him, I will edit that out, and the next hand you see will either be a very important hand or the hand where I stack Sean. So I'm going to go on and stop here, and I'll see you in a few.